For many, this sound right here probably has their neurons firing up with an insane amount of nostalgia. And by many, I mean 30-year-olds who grew up in the late 90s. As for me, I'm not that old. Get the f*** away from me, and I mostly spent my childhood playing PS2 games. Although in saying that, I'm not oblivious to how influential the PS1 was. I mean, come on, Metal Gear, Silent Hill, Resident Evil, the console gave birth to some of the biggest gaming franchises that are still around close to 30 years later. Well, most of them anyway.
Look up a whale.
However, as I've gotten older and consoles have continuously gotten more advanced, the original PlayStation seems to have slipped to the back of my mind, which is where I thought it would have stayed. But recently I've started to notice that more and more games have started to emulate that PlayStation aesthetic. Suddenly games like Death Stranding are now PS1 games. Actually, come to think of it, does that food look angular to anyone? I go to pet my cat, but its polygons are low. Hey, does that TV look kind of blocky to you? I don't remember Bloodborne having this much warping. Wait a minute, am I a PS1 game? Now, due to the PS1 coming out in 1994, that bitch is old, meaning the hardware at the time was obviously not super advanced, and devs only had so many polygons to work with. This is what led to PS1 games having such a distinctive look. The textures were small, polygon counts were kept low as to not cause the console to have a stroke, and due to some hardware limitations, the graphics would appear to wobble and warp around you, basically making every character look like they were having a panic attack. But while looking at these graphics nowadays may not be super impressive, back in the mid-90s this was groundbreaking stuff, as the PS1 marked the shift from games being 2D to 3D. Developers had so much more to play with, and as a result the console exploded with tons of unique and experimental games, really pushing all 32 bits of the PS1 to their limits. Sure, games that look photorealistic are nice and all, oh look, ray tracing, but there's such a surreal charm to the way PS1 games look that just scratches a part of my brain very nicely. Anyway, fast forward to the present day, and the PS1 has long been retired, yet still has more games than the PS5. However, even with the PS1 gathering dust in your mum's basement, its wobbly, low-poly graphics have somehow become even more popular, or some would say, aesthetic. Would you like to follow low-poly food or low-poly animals first? It's been a growing trend for years now, but it seems like more and more people are gravitating towards the low-poly aesthetic, including indie game devs who've adopted the PS1 specific look into their own projects, with a vast majority of these games being spooky.
Everyone and their mother has done this video already.
I mean, just look at last year's mouthwashing, which I was disappointed to learn wasn't a game about dental hygiene, but rather a deep psychological horror that sends you descending into pure madness. It also fed every Let's Play channel for several months.
I like trains.
But first, sex. Look at you. You definitely know what that means. You're a certified gamer after all. Where did you even buy this? Luckily, Adam and Eve has sponsored the video and will help you with your, addiction. Just go to their website and use code Webb to get 50% off an item, plus free shipping in the US or Canada. Now go forth, my friend, and become the CEO I know you can be. Why is this aesthetic so closely connected to horror though? Like when I think of the PS1, my brain doesn't instantly go to horror. Rather, I think of games like Spider-Man or even SmackDown Know Your Role.
And then maybe I'll take 3 Viagra.
However, the more I thought about it, the more I realised I'm a fucking idiot, because the PS1 literally gave us games like Silent Hill, a game so distinctly atmospheric, which utilised the limitations of the PS1 to make you feel even more uneasy playing it. I mean, a well-known fact about the game is that the fog you see surrounding the town was only there originally so that the PS1 didn't have to render the entire town, but in doing that, Team Silent created this eerie environment where you didn't know what could be lurking behind that fog.
Do you want to see the most illegal thing I own?
Then we have other games like Resident Evil, Parasite Eve, and Dino Crisis, which all brought a different kind of horror to the console. Some PlayStation games didn't even need to be horror to make you feel uncomfortable. Like, have you ever seen LSD Dream Simulator? So I think it's only natural that developers nowadays, who probably grew up playing a lot of these games, are taking major inspiration from them. Take for example Nightmare of Decay, a 2022 zombie game where its influences are stunningly apparent. From the mansion you wander around in to even some of the jump scares, Resident Evil clearly was the blueprint. Through that, the game builds a genuinely tense and foreboding atmosphere, where I really started to see just how well the art style can be used to build your anxiety. You know, before I had to fight a walking meat monster. Admittedly, the controls can be pretty clunky at times, but we'll chalk that up to good old PS1 immersion. Like, just look at that controller. I've developed carpal tunnel just looking at it. Lost in Vivo is another game which expertly uses the low poly aesthetic to create a hellish world that you can't help but sink deeper into as you look for your dog who's lost in the sewers. Honestly, a quick trip to Pets Home would have fixed this issue. The environments warp and almost seem to rot around you, the distorted music constantly puts you on edge, and ultimately you're left wondering, why didn't I just get a cat instead? Much like Nightmare of Decay, Lost in Vivo takes heavy inspiration from classic horror games, mainly the Silent Hill series, with aspects like the industrial environment which morph into this fleshy mess, and a story with some deep psychological themes. I'll add it to the pile. Seriously though, Lost in Vivo is a terrifying, almost surreal experience that constantly fucks with you and is filled with disgusting enemies that are pure nightmare fuel. Is that a fucking trick? I actually didn't realise just how many of these kinds of games there was. I mean, I haven't even mentioned Buckshot Roulette yet, which is a game where you play Russian roulette with... Jesus fucking Christ. However, I feel like there's two specific developers who are the kings of PS1 horror, with the first being David Szymanski. See, David here has grown quite the catalogue of horror titles that I think fall under the scary PS1 category. Or at the very least, has a 2-hour-long video essay made on that category. I mean, just look at his most recent game, Butcher's Creek, a survival horror that sees you take on a cult of serial killers who partake in some, amateur movies. Your goal is to collect as much of these tapes as possible so you can add them to your classic film collection, while also using anything you can get your hands on to defend yourself against these lovely cultists. Or how about we look at something a little lighter, like Squirrel Stapler, a game where you shoot squirrels and then meet gods.
Straight to hell, to the boiler room of hell, all the way down.
Iron Lung is probably David's most well-known game though, despite it being a relatively simple one that just stuffs you inside a submarine and expects you to have orienteering skills. For fuck's sake. The main plot here is that every star and habitable planet just disappeared, only leaving people who are on space stations alive. You play as a convict sent to explore a moon which has recently developed an ocean filled with blood in order to see if it may contain any valuable resources which you can document using the submarine's camera. In return for doing all of this, you're promised your freedom, but I don't really think we'll make it that far. One other thing I should mention is that due to the pressure of the ocean, your submarine will be completely sealed, meaning your only form of navigation will be your radar, while you're left all alone inside the Iron Lung.
Roll credits.
Now I would love to go more in depth here, but again, everyone's already done a video on this game by now, and I simply can't compete with those runtimes. What I will say is that Iron Lung definitely lives up to its reputation of being an utterly horrifying experience. You're placed into this cramped, rusted, claustrophobic environment with no way of seeing the outside world. It allows for these feelings of paranoia and isolation to set in, and they only grow throughout the rest of the game, as it becomes increasingly more difficult to distinguish the sounds of the Iron Lung from whatever could be in that ocean with you.
Hello, how are you? I am under the water.
Szymanski isn't alone in terrifying people with PS1 graphics though, because we also have Puppet Combo to help with that, who've been making slasher-inspired VHS horror games since 2015's Power Drill Massacre, an underrated classic of its time. From as far as I can see, Puppet Combo were at the forefront of the whole PS1 aesthetic in modern indie games, and were the first to really showcase just how effective this graphical style could be at giving you a mild heart attack.
Yo, I thought the jump scare was gonna be right there.
Like, just looking at these games makes me feel a visceral discomfort. I don't know what it is exactly, but there's just something so unsettling with these visuals. So of course, I bought two of them, the first of which being Murder House, where you take control of a news intern called Emma, who along with the rest of the news crew are investigating a house which used to belong to an infamous serial killer known as the Easter Ripper. But he's been long dead, so I'm sure nothing bad will happen. Murder House genuinely feels like an authentic PS1 game. Like all the other games I've mentioned definitely look like PlayStation games, but Murder House both plays and looks like one, whether that be through the fixed camera angles and tank controls, or the varying quality of voice acting.
That bastard. I should have given you the $50.
Ew, it's musty.
The game is filled with all the 80s camp you could ask for. Like, it's absolutely cliche, but in a charming old movie kind of way.
Where are the pizzas?
The gameplay is also very old school, with its core loop being find an item and then figure out which thing in the house that item correlates with, which can be a little boring to begin with, until the Easter Ripper shows up. Once he appears, the Ripper constantly stalks you throughout the house, showing up at the worst possible moments and causing my blood pressure to fucking spike. Every time this thing bursts through a door or appears in the stairwell, it creates these unbelievably tense moments where you scramble to get away from him, which is a lot easier said than done given the game's tank controls and how awkward they are to get used to. Like, these situations are stressful enough, I don't think running into a wall while frantically spamming the WASD keys is really helping. Did he just fucking chokeslam me?
Undertaker can be a little stiff.
Still not sold on the game though? Well, how about after I tell you? The Funny Irishman is in it too.
Whoa, calm down!
The other game I bought was their more recent title, Stay Out of the House, which I only got about an hour into before, this happened. Yeah, no, I'm good, I don't need that energy in my life. Now, I should point out that not everything which uses the PS1 aesthetic is an indie horror game. I mean, remakes have been a thing for years now, which is where someone takes something modern, like a video game or TV show, and makes it look old. You know, the opposite of a remake.
It's kind of meta.
Anyway, while I was looking around for non-horror games to play, there was one which just instantly caught my attention. Arctic Eggs is a very weird game. Set in a dystopian Antarctica where food sources are very limited, the inhabitants of this small colony are not only freezing, but extremely hungry. Yet despite the endless amounts of chickens you see scattered around the place, nobody is allowed to eat them due to a poultry ban executed by their overseer, the Saint of Six Stomachs. With all of that in mind, the game could only be about one possible thing: cooking eggs. You are a certified poultry prepper, which in other words means you're tasked with cooking hang on a minute. Which means you're tasked with cooking Which means you're tasked with, for fuck's sake. Okay, this shit is hard. You control your George Foreman grill with your mouse, but it seems like the sensitivity has been turned all the way up because even the slightest flinch will send your eggs into orbit. This becomes even more difficult the further you venture into the city because some people want extra flavour with their eggs, meaning your pan gets filled with other shit like beer, bugs, pufferfish, and even a stingray. This one's for Steve. You know what, I'll say it, this is the Dark Souls of cooking simulators. Sir, please stop throwing bullets into my pan. However, in saying that, the pure euphoria I felt once I finally managed to flip that egg was truly unmatched. Like it was almost as good as cooking a real egg. All these eggs aren't going to waste though, because your main goal is to cook for enough people to earn an audience with the Saint of Six Stomachs, which leads to you interacting with a lot of the city's inhabitants, who are by far the most bizarre people I have ever met. Like, you just drop in mid-conversation with some of these people, and we'll overhear the wildest statements. When the bass drops, kill yourself, fucking hell. I absolutely adore every aspect of this game. Its overtly strange world, your character's mysterious backstory, and even the chicken symbolism. 10 out of 10 would definitely make a 2-hour-long video essay on it. Evidently, the whole PS1 aesthetic isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and while there are multiple reasons as to why it's became so popular recently, I think the main one may be nostalgia.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Now, just hear me out, okay? I wish I could come up with some grand analysis as to why this style has become so relevant years after the PS1 was a common household appliance, but realistically, a big component of its success is that we're all getting older. For many, these games harken back to a time when life was just easier, when you didn't have bills to pay and the only responsibilities you had was deciding how many chicken nuggets you wanted. Am I being overly sentimental about what is more than likely just a trendy aesthetic? Probably, but for me, these games reminded me of a much simpler time in my life. Mainly when I didn't have to cook my own eggs. Oh, come on!